The 80s were crazy when it came to action movies. I mean, extremely violent, lots of nudity, and no one seemed to care about offending anybody. Now, for reasons that I will get into, there have just been a few movies that I never got to see, like Conan the Barbarian. So I was 6 years old when this movie came out, and this was rated R. So yeah, it wasn't a movie that my parents were going to allow me to see, probably because of the sex and nudity that was in it. But here's the funny thing. I don't know when it happened, probably around, I'm guessing, 11 or 12 years old. My dad just started showing me rated R movies. And I got to see Aliens. I got to see RoboCop. I got to see Die Hard. And the thing is he would record it, on our VHS. And then he would watch it with me and try to mute out the curse words. And he was always too slow. So what I would hear is I would hear the curse word and then not the next 4 or 5 words because he just couldn't do it. And I'm like, Dad, well, I mean, what's the point? I mean, at this point, I've heard it. I've heard the word. What's it gonna do? I heard it again. I'm scarred forever. Funny thing is, though, for some reason, my sister and her boyfriend, now her husband, yeah, they took me to see Predator in the theater in 1987. I was 11, and it was awesome. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that I'm no stranger to the 80s and action movies and all that thing. Lethal Weapon, and I mean, come on, there's so many great action movies from the 80s, including a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And it's kind of funny that all this time I didn't get to see the first one. Now, here's the thing. There are problems with this movie. Okay? There are things in this movie that are cheesy, and look, it's a product of its time. So I'm not going to sit here and crap on a movie that for a lot of people watching this probably, this may be one of your favorites. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to point out some of the things that I thought were funny or whatever, but let's have fun with this, okay? I'm not trying to say, "Oh yeah, your favorite movie sucks" or anything like that. There's enough of that on the internet already. So let's just have fun and let's talk about Conan. So there was a lot going into this that I didn't know. I knew that John Milius directed it. I didn't know that he co-wrote the screenplay with Oliver Stone. Yeah, Born on the 4th of July, JFK, Natural Born Killers, Oliver Stone. Kind of a surprise to me. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. Basil Polidoris did the music for the movie, and he also did RoboCop, which, I mean, come on. RoboCop is iconic. Those themes in RoboCop are iconic. So I was really looking forward to hearing that same level of, I guess, like awesomeness that I heard in RoboCop. Now, even though I don't think it's nearly as good as RoboCop is, I still can hear like there's some good stuff here. And I really, really enjoyed the score. Even though there were some scenes like the scene where Conan's family gets killed at the beginning, the music sounds strangely triumphant, and it was like, okay, that was strange. Also, the production design, which I think was fantastic, pretty much across the board, was done by Ron Cobb, who did Alien and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then Aliens, and The Abyss, and The Last Starfighter. I mean, a bunch of 80s classic movies, so I knew I'd seen the name before. I just couldn't really remember what I'd seen it on. And it was kind of awesome to see him work here because the production design, like I said, was pretty awesome. Now, for those of you who may not be aware, Arrow Films is going to be releasing a box set of Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer on January 30th, 2024. And it includes a bunch of awesome stuff, including the posters, of course, the 4K HDR presentations of each movie, and a bunch of lobby cards and stuff. And Arrow Films does a great job with special features, so these things are going to be packed. So for fans of these movies, hey, here you go. And you can buy one or the other. If you're not much of a fan of Conan the Destroyer, you can just pick up Conan the Barbarian and be happy. Even though I think for the most part the film looked really, really good, there were some variations in like the quality of the film from scene to scene, almost looking like they used a different film stock in some cases. It just looked really grainy and kind of bad. Even some of the low light scenes don't look fantastic, but I rented this off of iTunes, and this is probably the current Blu-ray presentation that they had on the iTunes rental. So I'm kind of curious if this new 4K HDR presentation from Arrow is going to look that much better. Now, this is something that's just a product of the time. The sound quality of the dialogue is not fantastic. I mean, number one, you have a lot of scenes that are shot outside, and when you're shooting outside, you get everything. The mics pick up everything. So there's a lot of dialogue that's been replaced. ADR. When they're sitting in a booth with a microphone in front of them and trying to match the performance. And re-recording the dialogue. There's a lot of that. And of course, there's probably the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger is speaking in his second language, and maybe his pronunciation's not great, so they had to re-record it probably multiple times. One of the things that's kind of scared me right off the bat is I see Dino De Laurentiis presents, and I'm like, man, Dino De Laurentiis is really hit or miss with me, because a lot of times the effects are not fantastic, and I don't like a lot of those scenes, and you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it in Flash Gordon, you saw it in Dune, where they're basically on a green screen and the background is just, some other piece of footage, and it just looks bad. The first scene is Conan talking with his dad, and there's an obvious different background behind them, and I was like, oh man, is this what this movie's going to be? Okay. Thankfully, that's one of only, I don't know if there's any more shots other than that in the movie where it looks that distractingly bad. Look, it's just I don't like that. I don't and De Laurentiis films, man, they do that a lot, and yeah. One of my favorite things about watching especially 80s Arnold movies, it's the yells and the laughing and the, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, right? I completely didn't even think about, hey, this is Arnold's first film. Maybe we're going to get some Arnold screams. And man, on that level, the movie did not disappoint, because it was all over the place. Can someone explain to me what this is? Because I don't understand what they're doing here. Like, what's the purpose of basically making these children stronger? Is that the only point of this thing, or are they doing something? Like, are they cranking out water? What is going on here? I'm sitting there going, I don't get what's going on here. Why would they do this? I don't understand. I love how Conan escapes, and he happens across this hut with a extremely normal looking woman, and starts to have sex with her, and then she starts going crazy, and like you do, he just threw her into the fire. What was that about? I couldn't help but laugh, and I'm like, what is going on? And the funny thing is does she ever come up again? I don't think so. It made it look like, oh, maybe she'll come up later in the movie and have some, effect on something. No, it's just a scene that's there. I don't get it. Now, obviously, I think a lot of people, when they look at these movies, they see the Beastmaster as well, because it was released the same year, and the Beastmaster is equally awkward and a product of its time, I'll just say. And here's the thing, the Beastmaster is like friends with animals. Conan's not. He literally punches a camel in the mouth, and then there's a part where, he's been captured, and a vulture is snacking on him, and he just bites the thing. And I couldn't help but laugh. Again, I know it's not meant to be like funny, but I'm sorry, it cracked me up. This is hilarious. There's also a battle with a snake, and I like how the snake doesn't really attack. He just kind of comes up and he's like, hey, what are you doing? And suddenly Conan's sword is just in the snake's mouth and face, I guess, and they battle for a minute. I don't know. I was cracking up. It just made me laugh. I'm sorry. Look, I know I'm meant to be taking this somewhat seriously. This is a favorite of a lot of people. I'm sorry, but it made me laugh. I was actually surprised to see some actors in the movie that I was really impressed with. Max von Sydow is in the movie here for just a couple of minutes, and he's great. He's great in everything he does. But it was just kind of cool to see him there. And then, of course, the great Mako is in this movie, and I actually enjoyed his character probably the most out of everybody. The wizard was really fun. I liked him. And of course, he's the narrator of the movie. He starts off the movie and I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, is that Uncle? If you don't know what I'm talking about, Mako played Uncle in Avatar: The Last Airbender. He was the voice of Uncle. And I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, so of course I'm like, I perked up, you know? And it actually made me look up a lot of Mako movies and go, yeah, I've seen that. Oh yeah, I remember that. He was in that. And it made me want to see this movie called The Sand Pebbles from 1966, where Steve McQueen and Mako both were nominated for acting awards in 1966. So I kind of want to see this movie now. One of the things that I think was really kind of interesting was that, this is 1982, and the fact that they made Valeria kind of a badass is really forward thinking and kind of awesome. I didn't expect that. I expected her to show up and sort of be the damsel in distress. No, she holds her own and she's kind of awesome. And I appreciated that. There's also a really funny scene, which I can't really show you a lot of the scene, but there's an orgy going on and James Earl Jones just turns into a snake. I didn't expect that. I mean, of course I knew James Earl Jones was in this. And anytime that you can see or hear James Earl Jones, it's a treat, right? But I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that at all. It's kind of, that was interesting. Another scene that was like, oh, I didn't expect that, is James Earl Jones turns a snake into an arrow and then shoots it with a bow. Didn't expect that one. That was an interesting one. Look, I know it's probably sounding like, Rob, are you going to say anything nice about the movie? Dude, there's plenty of great. I'm talking about my experience watching them for the first time. It's the stuff that stuck out to me. I mean, I thought a lot of the action was kind of clumsy, but there's no doubt that Arnold is an imposing figure. And he's definitely, in 1982, his first movie, he's got charisma. And you can see why he became a star off of this movie. I mean, I think the Terminator really pushed him over. You know what I mean? But this you can see it. You can see a star in the making. And it was really, really cool to see that. It's also no surprise that, of course, this is a staple of 80s boys, teenage boys, whatever. Yeah, they loved Conan the Barbarian. I mean, there's extreme violence, there's nudity, there's all kinds of stuff for a growing boy to latch on to and just love, and probably rewind some scenes every now and then. But yeah, it's a thing, and I totally get it. I totally understand why this was one of everybody's favorites. I will say that I loved the way that this movie ended with Arnold on the throne as King Conan. Like, wow, that is really, really cool. And it just begs the question, why did they never go back to do that? I want to see that. I mean, look, I'm not even the biggest fan of this movie, but I want to see that. I want to see King Conan. So again, I hope I didn't irritate anybody by me kind of mostly picking apart some of the goofy things in this movie. But look, I actually enjoyed watching it. It was a little slow, I will say. There were times when I was like, how long is this movie? But for the most part, I enjoyed it. And it was cool to see something that I'd heard about so many years and just never got around to seeing for whatever reason. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious. Like, what are your things? What are the things that you're like, your favorite scenes, or the things that you like, the reasons why you love Conan the Barbarian? Let's talk about it in the comment section, because that's fun. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Polydorus? I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. Basil Papadorus? Polydorus. I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. Basil, Polydorus. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, but Basil Polydorus? I can't get this guy's name right. Turns a snake into an arrow and shoots it with a bow and arrow, with a bow, not a bow and arrow, because the arrow,